Hey guys, it's Bailey and welcome back to the channel for what is going to be a quick review of Benefit's brand new Do the Hula Liquid Bronzer. So this guy is relatively new from the Benefit line. I think it was one of their spring summer launches. Retails for $28, so pretty on par with the rest of the Benefit line, although I do think it is $1 cheaper than the powder version of the Hula bronzer, which is what this was kind of created after. So I picked this up because as we're getting into warmer weather, I'm kind of going back in my stash and pulling out my bronzers, seeing what I missed, what I loved, what I wasn't so fond of, and then this came out and there aren't a whole lot of products out there like it. So basically they took the Hula tone and finish and put it in a liquid form so it is completely shimmerless. I gotta be honest though, I don't actually have Hula to show you as a comparison, so I did not hop on the Hula bandwagon. It's kind of kicking me in the butt right now though, because now I don't have it to compare, but I'm gonna trust that it's not shimmerless. This is not this is shimmerless. It does not have any shimmer in it, not really even a satin finish. Here, any glow you see is from highlighter, but I think you'll be able to see in the demo that it really does apply, not matte, but it doesn't have any sort of, you know, texture to it at all. It really blends in seamlessly to a kind of liquid to powder formula. That being said though, I think you will also see, because I'm gonna have a couple of demos here, that the first thing I struggled with right off the bat when starting to use this is how to apply. I first started with kind of a fluffier, what I would normally use for a bronzer, put one drop on the back of my hand and went in with a fluffy brush like this, maybe even in fact this brush. This is the e.l.f. No Name brush. It's basically a kind of a fluffy powder brush. You can see wide area, something that I would normally apply bronzer with, and this ended up being like applying it as a splotchy, streaky mess all over my skin. Really was not happy with that application, and so my first wear with this was kind of a bust. I was not excited about this product. Then fast forward to a few days later, I wanted to give it another try, but I thought I would use something that's a little more attuned to kind of buffing and blending liquids in, like this that I like to use to blend in my foundation. Once again, no name on the brush, but it's just a general kind of Real Techniques has a very similar one, the buffing brush, and that general shape. So I wouldn't recommend going in and just doing kind of wide buffing circles like you might with foundation. Rather do kind of smaller, lighter circles and then pounce on top of the skin. Another great tool solely for that, because it mimics that same action on the skin, is something like a damp beauty blender. I tend to prefer brushes because they're easier to clean, I think, and they stay damp for not as long. But if that's your cup of tea, you could probably totally use that as well with equally as great results. But just a little tip from me to you, I found that using a buffing brush like this over a typical bronzer powder brush yielded much greater results. The next thing that I struggled with was the tone. Now, like I said, I don't have the powder version of this, so I don't know exactly how warm or orangey the original Hula is. I was always under the impression that it was cooler, which is why it was so like virally successful. Everyone loved it and everyone said it was flattering for their skin tone. This is a little orange. Kind of surprised at how orange it is. I'm hoping it shows up on camera, but when I was looking in the viewfinder in the demo earlier, it was coming off, you know, relatively flattering. It applies okay on my skin if it's a sheer amount, but it is supposed to be a buildable formula, and when I try and build it, that's when it gets a little oompa loompa-y. And so that, I would say, is probably one of the major downsides, next to kind of the learning curve, understanding how to apply it and what works for you in application. I would say that undertone is the other tricky part for me, and that might be a major downside for a lot of people because it kind of eliminates it for the very cool skin tones and maybe even some of the neutral that just tend to prefer a cooler bronzer. Additionally, like I said, it is a buildable formula, but only to some extent. I think it would definitely work for fair, light, medium, deep skin tones, but beyond that, you might have to work a little bit harder if you are able to at all to build up skin tones beyond that. So wear time and undertone were two big factors for me, probably two on the con list because they are kind of limiting. It's a little bit harder to work with. But something else I want to talk about is the lasting power. I was really impressed with the lasting power of this guy. You'll be able to see from the before and after shots that I have, it does not, I mean, once it dries down, it really does stay all day with your, it's going to depend a little bit on the foundation that you have, but I am wearing a foundation that I know has great longevity, and so it didn't run or get splotchy or cake up on top of that. And I even applied powder over top, not all over my face, but I applied a loose powder in my under eye area, so naturally that's going to fall down a little bit in areas around my face, and it really plays nicely with whatever texture that creates on my skin. It doesn't clump up with that powder despite the fact that it's a liquid. So you might want to do the reverse. It's in hindsight, that's probably not the way to go about applying those products in that order. But I do have to say, if that is how you do it and you don't want to have to worry about your bronzer getting all finicky with the other products you have on your face, this does play nicely in the event that that's how you like to do it. And then the other thing I wanted to bring up in here is why you might go for this instead of the Hula powder formula, or any powder formula for that matter, or how you can use it in conjunction with your Hula bronzer, even though I don't, or any bronzer for that matter, since I don't own Hula. But let's start with that. On the Ulta website in their demo, they actually show layering the powder bronzer over the liquid, which could be a great option if you do find that this or any liquid formula for bronzer budges on your face. Go in with your bronzer and then go and kind of give that same area a little once over with your powder bronzer, so it can work in conjunction like that. However, I have found with a formula like this, where it's a liquid bronzer but it's sheer, it's meant to be sheared out and built, it doesn't add any coverage if you want to mix it in with your foundation. So if you love your foundation formula but you've been in the sun, summer, tanning, you can either layer it completely over your face before you apply your foundation, but I do find it lays a little bit more naturally when I mix it in with my foundation and then go buff and blend it in that way. And unlike mixing in something like CoverFX's custom cover drops, which are amazing and meant to change the tint of your foundation, they're also meant to add coverage. Like the more drops you add, the more coverage you're going to add, as well as changing that tint. And so this, you really don't have to worry about compromising the coverage of the formula. It's really just adding that tint. So just something to think about if you're wondering why you might want like a liquid bronzer over something else. But just keep in mind, there are those hurdles that I mentioned before, kind of the limited skin tones it's going to work for, as well as the learning curve that I experienced, and that's not going to be everyone. I just noticed that right off the bat I was kind of turned off because I just noticed it was streaky. So it just takes a little bit of working with, but hopefully I gave some tips in here that make it a better product for you if you have purchased it and it's not working for you, or if you're looking forward to purchasing it but want it to be like a smooth, seamless experience. So really hope you guys enjoyed this review. It was not as short as I anticipated, but still hope it was informational and hope you guys enjoyed watching. Please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will catch you in my next video. Bye guys.